We're going to get started with our public forum, and for anybody watching or anybody attending for the first time, we allocate 45 minutes in the beginning of each meeting for people to address the board on issues of concern about TriMet or suggestions. And we have a sign-up sheet that is made available before this time, and we ask the people sign up who want to speak. We have 11 people who want to speak this morning. And in order to make sure that we get through and everybody has an opportunity to speak, I'm going to ask everybody to limit their remarks, please, to 3 minutes. If people have other information they want to provide us that would take longer, we can obviously provide written information to the board secretary, and they'll make sure that we get it, be included in our packet so we have that information. And also you can obviously make comments online and provide us that information. So with that, what I'm going to do is call you up 2 at a time. And again, there's a timer in front of you. I think it starts green, goes to yellow, and then gets to red and lets you know when your 3 minutes are up. If you're not done in that 3 minutes, I'll ask you to please conclude your remarks so we can get to everybody. All right? So let's get started. It's about 10 after, so we'll be 10:55 or so then. 9:55, excuse me, was when we'll conclude the public forum if we don't get through it. All right? All right, so the first 2 people are Carlo Neto and Leon Chavarria. If I pronounced that right, please come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. I'd like to have an appointment with one of you because what I have to say is a little bit more depth than just, superficial speaking about. And I have an experience, in fleet management, of companies like this one that you see right here.
Oh, okay.
It was on a deficit of 10 million. In 5 years, it was on a positive side of 40 million. And we could pretty much undercut, FedEx and UPS. And that's why it was a battle to get this roadway packing system. And the problems that I found on that company was mostly in 2 sectors, which were drivers, and maintenance, and supervising and management. Pretty much want the status quo the way it is without the company go up. Most of the time, bring them down. I have a lot of other things that I want to explain to you, so give me an appointment and I will explain all of that.
Okay. I'll ask the staff to figure out how we can do that, but we're always looking for suggestions, so thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And again, the name of your company, I can't.
The company is no longer exists.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was bought by FedEx, which is called today FedEx Ground.
Okay.
This was the origin.
All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Where do I direct myself?
We'll get somebody, we'll come see you here in the staff, okay? All right, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, how you doing? Well, I should say good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks. I was getting off the lift when we visited the Orange Line before it opened up. And I had an idea, but it didn't register until about 3 months later. So I've manufactured this little thing. What I believe it would benefit Lyft drivers and ride connection or something like that. Whoever's in a Lyft, I mean the operator, right? Or maybe also the caretaker, or not caretaker. I don't know what the word is. Anyways, maybe a little wider. But anyways, so they can kneel down, have it the consistency of an exercise mat, so it'll help their knees. And the reason you have a consistency of an exercise mat is if you had just had it foam rubber, they would just sink into it and feel the floor. And then just have it on rubber so that if it gets soiled, you can just run a sponge over it. And also so they can twist easily if they have to undo the securement devices. Do I get any reaction?
Yeah. Yes. I'm not, yeah.
I just used something like that on Saturday morning, and it was the hard foam. I was on my knees on a volunteer job, and it really helped out, especially
Good.
when you're older.
Okay, thanks.
No, thank you.
Sure.
So you're going to bring that to the CAT or to the staff also?
We'll make sure the staff sees it, and then we can bring it with the cat.
Yeah, just-
All right.
Up with the cat, too, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Leon. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
All right, the next two I have are Chris Walker and Charles Ornsby. Is Charles Ornsby here yet?
He was running late.
Okay. So why don't we go with the next one, Chris Orlando? Why don't we have Chris come up?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just a few thoughts for you. First of all, I was thinking about the Blazer games and how you guys have staff there to help Max riders get their tickets, get on, figure out where they're going and help with that. On the other side, there's the Lyft and cab users with Lyft who have a hard time sometimes negotiating with cab drivers to figure out what cab they're on, and you don't want somebody thinking that they're on that cab and then the driver thinks it's somebody else, and it's a language barrier. And so I thought it might be important to have somebody who would be able to communicate, be a go-between between the cab and the customer there to help out with had to call for the buses later or something because there's no phone service down there. If just a thought for the Moda Center and Coliseum, because there's a lot of events that go on and a lot of people with disabilities who do that. Also, I just a few thoughts I'll write up later, but STFAC, things that I've heard around the tables as we're discussing things. There is a need for some sort of as we're growing through a huge community, traveling more and more people using Lyft, there's a need for restroom stops. So you have an older community, and technically they're not supposed to stop at all between the time you get on the bus and the time you deboard. And sometimes for people that could be a long drive, and there's people who with fragile needs and medical needs that may need to get off and take care of business and just have trouble with that. And also with the construction, sometimes the stops get moved, but there's either a bag with a pull or there's a stop in the middle of construction, and it's not fully it's not able to be used because people get lost, or the things in the middle of a pit of sand and gravel, and it's not a good place for somebody to wait in the middle of a gravel pit for a bus stop. And there is a lot of construction going on, so there's that. So just a few things to think about as you guys are going through things. So
Great. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you coming in this morning.
yeah.
Another Chris.
Good morning. Thank you for the time to speak. My name is Chris Orlando. I am a current bus operator, and I wanted to speak real quickly on what I see as a rampant safety issue going on. And this involves passengers running across traffic to catch buses against lights in front of buses that are moving or about to pull out from stops. As a bus operator, I am full on board with safety is our #1 priority. That's what we think about as operators every second of every day and every decision that we're making out there. When I have passengers telling me that this is just what we do because we know you have to pick us up, I started to think about what's going on here and started doing some research, and was brought to my attention as part of written form what we're given as operators for our training. One of the lines in there speaks to this issue and says that TriMet does not encourage customers to walk into traffic to board a bus. However, if it is safe, allow them to board the bus. I started thinking about that and realizing that, are we really not encouraging it? Or might we be encouraging it by saying, come on board and the bus operator's not supposed to say anything to you about the issue, because then it could possibly turn into an altercation on the bus. This is a frequent occurrence. This isn't something that happens to me once every 6 months, or this happens on a regular daily basis if you're driving the bus mall at 5 p.m. when everyone's just off of work and trying to get there, and everybody across the board, suits, ties, 40s, 50s, kids, old, young, black, white, it happens continually, and I think it's something that needs to be looked into. It's a training issue, I think, that we can look into, and a training issue for us as operators, because there's confusion, I think, and conflicting training going on, whereas let them on, don't say anything. But there's also, in writing, says that if someone comes and pounds on the bus door, that's a violation of TriMet code, and they can be refused service. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. That's a good issue. I hadn't thought about that, so thank you for your suggestions. Look into that some more. All right, next two is Shirley Block and Barbara Bird. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I see you.
President Warner and members of the TriMet board. My name is Shirley Block, president of ATU 757, and I'm here today with ATU members as well as labor, community partners, Jobs with Justice, AFL-CIO, ask me, TJA, to ask this board to intervene with the deteriorating relationship between TriMet manager and the workers. Specifically, I am asking for this board to meet with ATU leaders and members as soon as possible to try and find a solution to the toxic relationship that now exists between TriMet managers and the workers that are here, that are the heart and soul of this public transportation. Let me first be very clear that I am not asking you to intervene with the collective bargaining activities that are scheduled to begin later this summer. What I am asking you to do is to work with union leaders and members before summer arrives to better understand how TriMet's workers are being harmed by the agency aggressive anti-union tactics and the development of plan to this union hostility. But let me also be clear about something else. ATU is actively building a board coalition of labor unions and community groups, a small handful which you see here today, to better support and defend the workers' dignity and rights at TriMet. We can and will respond to TriMet aggressive anti-union tactics with destructive protests and legal action if that is the path we are forced to take by the agency unwilling to change. But if possible, we would prefer a different path. We would rather take a path mutual respect and collaboration, recognizing and share a goal and working together to achieve this path. Unfortunately, I am here today because time and opportunity to pursue the more peaceful path is quickly running out. In fact, many TriMet workers feel that the time and opportunity for collaboration has already passed. For good reason, and for a very good reason, these workers believe that only major disruption of TriMet operation in Portland and legislative priorities in Salem can bring about meaningful change. To be honest with you, as someone who has worked at TriMet for 35 years, it's very hard for me to digest this point. As president of ATU and fully understand the risk of further upsetting these members, by coming to you today asking one final time for a respectful resolution to TriMet's growing culture. But because some ATU members still believe, even if only just a few, that meaningful dialogue remains there. What I'm asking that this board come together with us and try to do a resolution and work together as a team. We have managers that don't want to work with us, and I'm asking you, Bruce, you have control over this, to resolve this solution. Get together and work with us.
Okay. Shirley, I guess I want to say on behalf of the board, we understand that we have to work together in a collaborative way to provide service for the transit riders of the Portland metro area. And I'm troubled by what you've said there. I will work with the general manager. I think that a few years ago when I first got on board, we did have a meeting, a couple of us with some of the union leadership. I'd be more than willing to do that because I want to understand what it is that concerns you. What you said is a surprise to me, frankly, in terms of the way we've been working together. It looks like, from my perspective, that we're doing a good job working together on issues. So if that's not the case, we need to understand what those issues are, and we look forward to working with you on those.
Could you set a date with me? Have someone set a date with me today?
I don't think I can set a date with you today, but I'd be glad to work with you to set a date in the near future. All right. Good.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Barbara.
President Warner and members of the board, my name is Barbara Bird. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Oregon AFL-CIO. I'm speaking today here on behalf of our President, Tom Chamberlain, who's out of the country, and of our 300,000 Union and Working America members who live in Oregon. The Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 757, is an affiliate of our federation, and I'm proud to be here today to speak in support of the dedicated union drivers and the maintenance employees of TriMet who go to work every day to ensure that our city's buses and light rail are running safely and effectively. So I'm going to reiterate some of what President Block just said. The Oregon Public Employee Collective Bargaining Act was passed almost 40 years ago in recognition of the importance of encouraging a harmonious and cooperative relationship between government and its employees. We believe that a positive labor management relationship is not only good for union employees, but it's good for TriMet. It's good for the riding public, and it's good for the community as a whole. Yet our federation is concerned by signals that TriMet management has not made a good faith effort to maintain a productive relationship with ATU, that it's failing to treat drivers and maintenance workers, its most valuable assets, with the dignity and the respect that they deserve. In fact, the entire labor community is concerned about poor labor management relations at TriMet. This situation has a direct impact on the working lives of the people who make sure that the buses and light rail are running on time and that the equipment is safe and reliable. TriMet management sets a bad precedent, and their conduct sends a bad message to other public employers about upholding the spirit of PECBA. And we know that the lack of a productive relationship between TriMet and ATU has consequences beyond its own workforce. We're concerned about impacts to the quality of service and effective stewardship of our public transportation system that so many working families rely on in this region. We're concerned about the negative consequences for TriMet's public image and the potential deterioration of the public's trust in the system. Our hope is that you, the TriMet board members, will take steps toward repairing the relationship between TriMet management and the Amalgamated Transit Union so that the parties can work together to improve the agency and the critical services that it provides. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I also have Jeff Klotke and John Hunt. Good morning.
Good morning, President Warner, Vice President Bethel, members of the board. My name is Jeff Klotke. I'm the president of Oregon AFSCME. We are a union that represents over 25,000 public services workers in Oregon. We represent workers at over 150 different employers and agencies in Oregon, including, among others, Metro, OHSU, Multnomah, and Clackamas counties, the city of Portland, and several agencies of the state of Oregon, including attorneys at the Department of Justice in the in the Office of the State Attorney General, Ellen Rosenblum. I mention these other large public employers, and in particular, the Attorney General's office, to illustrate how familiar AFSCME is with public sector labor relations in the Portland metropolitan region, and that we are also familiar with employers who, by their very nature, can be litigious and political. But even we, looking in from the outside, look at the condition of labor relations between TriMet and ATU and struggle to think of an employer with whom we have such a broken relationship and at such a high profile. Articles in several Portland publications are not infrequent in chronicling the contentious relationship between TriMet and its employees, and I am here to tell you that it does not have to be that way. AFSCME would prefer that it not be that way for you. Collaborative relationships are always the most productive. The collaboration between forward-thinking unions and their employers have led to amazing results here in our part of Oregon. The momentum for raising the minimum wage, for example, and paid sick leave and paid family leave started here in Multnomah County and the city of Portland and have elevated our entire community. Joint labor management healthcare committees have also been particularly valuable, routinely delivering better benefits, better experience levels, and lower costs to both employees and employers. AFSCME is very proud of the positive and collaborative atmosphere we have cultivated in the metropolitan region, and we hope TriMet and ATU can enjoy a similar relationship. AFSCME will continue to watch your relationship, and we hope that it doesn't start to affect the relationships that we have built with other public employers in the region. A collaborative relationship between TriMet and ATU could have tremendous positive results regarding, for example, the transportation package in the 2017 legislature, could result in higher employee and rider satisfaction, and so many other things. You have an opportunity to reset this relationship between TriMet and ATU, and on behalf of Oregon AFSCME, I encourage you to build a more collaborative relationship. I see I have a few minutes left, so if I could comment briefly on a letter dated February 5, 2016 from Christine Stevens to ATU regarding new employee union meetings. You should be very concerned about the quality of legal counsel you have received regarding the interpretation of ORS 243.670, and I'm happy to give these written remarks to you later. Specifically, the interpretation of the change to the statute by the legislature in 2013 regarding the use of public funds by a public employer as they relate to union activity. I'll submit my written remarks.
Great. Thank you very much. Your comments are very much appreciated. Thank you. John.
Good morning, President Warren, members of the board. My name is Jonathan Hunt, Vice President of Amalgamated Transit Union Division 757. I'm here today with our labor and community partners to ask the board to work with us to repair our broken relationship with TriMet management. The amount of hostility towards ATU from some of TriMet's management team is not only destructive and counterproductive, it's unique. As members of the board may or may not know, ATU 757 represents nearly every public worker in the state of Oregon and Southwest Washington, from Tillamook to Medford, Walla Walla to Bend. It is ATU members that help get Oregonians to work, to school, the doctor, and all other places to survive and thrive. Public transit is literally the lifeline for many Oregonians who would otherwise be isolated. And most public transit agencies in our state recognize its drivers, mechanics, and other members of ATU are actually providing the services that the public depends on. They aren't just the face of public transit, they are the hands, the head, and the heart. ATU members are the ones skipping meals to get strangers to church and to school on time. They are the ones skipping bathroom breaks because those know that even stopping for a quick restroom could cause somebody to be late to work or to lose their job. They are the ones being verbally and physically assaulted by passengers who are unhappy of service cancellations, overcrowding, and fares that they can't afford. And we deserve, in fact, we demand more than a once-a-year pat on the back and a few nice words, mostly for the camera or a plaque. The last time I traveled to Medford for an example, to meet with Julie Brown, the general manager of Rogue Valley Transit District. I was greeted with a hug, not a handshake, a hug. And our meeting was warm, respectful, productive, remembering this is a conservative Southern Oregon location. Do we always agree? Of course not. But we respect each other. And we also solve problems together, just like we do in Eugene, Bend, Tillamook, and elsewhere. But here in Portland, TriMet management has done everything it can to prevent me from even visiting ATU members or having them visit us. As Jeff just explained, TriMet management has unilaterally canceled longstanding orientation practices to discourage new hires at the agency from meeting with union representatives. They have revoked my TriMet badge, making it harder to gain access and workplaces to try to address minor issues before they become major concerns. And TriMet management prefers that almost all issues be resolved through expensive and time-consuming formal grievance processes, rather than more informal labor management meetings. A best practice in the transit industry and elsewhere that doesn't happen at TriMet, and has been repeatedly called out for concerns in the audit. I will finish my remarks very briefly. Audit after audit after audit of TriMet, including the recent Secretaries of State audit. Yet these days, TriMet management responds to most requests to talk to the ATU and issue by either ignoring us or having their lawyers send us letters explaining why TriMet isn't required to talk to us unless we file legal action. It doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. I hope the members of TriMet governing board feels differently than the staff does, because I know that a more productive relationship is possible. I know this because it already is a reality at the other transit agencies in our state. And this is why, one final time, we are coming before the board today and asking you to work with us to solve this problem. We are hopeful that you will accept our offer. But as you heard from our president earlier this morning, should your efforts fail, we can and will do whatever it is necessary to protect the dignity and rights of the workers at TriMet. The choice is yours. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, John. We look forward to having some dialogue with you folks. Thank you. Right. And so I've got Michael Tetch, is it, with the Community Cycling Center, and I'm going to go back to the person, Charles Ornsby. I don't know whether he's here now. Okay. Come on up, please.
President Warner, members of the TriMet Board, good morning. My name is Michael Tete. I serve as the Chief Executive Officer of the Community Cycling Center. The Community Cycling Center believes everyone deserves access to the freedom, health, and benefits and joy of bicycling. And today, in addition to representing the Community Cycling Center, I'm here before you as co-chair and representative of the Transportation Justice Alliance, or TJA. TJA is an influential regional coalition of grassroots community organizations and allies that believe transportation is a human right and whose mission is to build power in low-income communities and communities of color to ensure an affordable, equitable, and environmentally sustainable transportation system. TJA members include racial justice organizations like the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon, the Center for Intercultural Organizing, the Native American Youth and Family Center, as well as environmental justice organizations like OPAL, or economic justice organizations like the Oregon Food Bank, and Oregon's most effective transportation and land use advocacy groups like 1,000 Friends of Oregon, the Bicycle Transportation Alliance, the Community Cycling Center, and Oregon Walks. I'm here today as a representative of these groups to express our shared concerns over the antagonistic and dysfunctional relationship that currently exists between TriMet management and the Amalgamated Transit Union. TriMet's relationship with its workers has been tense for many years. That certainly isn't news to anyone in this room. But recent actions by TriMet staff that you've already heard plenty about today threaten to make this tension even worse. I'm here because it is critical for this board to fully appreciate the multiple ways in which further alienating ATU and Oregon's labor community, as well as transportation, land use, and community advocates, is counterproductive to the goals that we all share, or at least should share, with TriMet. Let me give you two very quick non-labor examples of how TriMet is increasingly isolating itself from long-standing and/or potential allies. First, TriMet's aggressive pursuit of an even bigger slice of regional flexible funding to finance the agency's construction debts at the expense of safe routes to school funding that has been prioritized by community members and advocacy groups is beyond frustrating. It shows how out of touch the agency is with the needs of the communities it purports to serve. The second example, which is an intolerably regressive wage tax proposal that TriMet attempted and failed to pass during the most recent state legislative session. This regressive wage tax on working families forced many of TriMet's once upon a time allies in the transportation, land use, and social justice communities to openly oppose it, including two of the largest environmental and land use advocacy groups in our state, the Oregon Environmental Council and 1,000 Friends of Oregon. TriMet's increasing unilateralism, and I really feel that's the right word for it, with respect to both organized labor and community advocates, is making all of our shared goals harder to identify and achieve. But the broken relationship between TriMet management and its workers creates an additional concern for community advocates like me because of the well-respected, adequately supported, and collaboratively engaged workers that you need that serve as the backbone of the world-class transportation system that we all want for our region. Indeed, an agency that has spent so much time lately talking about safety, the number one thing that it can do in this area, hands down, is to improve the relationship with its drivers and its mechanics. This isn't a controversial thing to say. It's a point that has been made in multiple audits of TriMet and throughout the transit research nationally. We need to find solutions together. We need to work as a team to pass new policies and revenue measures that respect the dignity and rights of TriMet's workers and improve transit service in our region. On behalf of TJA, I'm asking members of this board to meet with union leadership and members to begin the difficult process of reconciliation so that the true supporters of public transit, workers and riders alike, can have the system we all want, need, and deserve. Thank you for your time.
Are you Mr. Ormsby? Please come on up. And then the last one I have signed up is Bill Wimmer. Bill, you want to come up too? Come on up. Is it too late to sign up? It is.
Okay. Then I'll leave most of my time to go ahead.
Can you see part of his time?
We'll give you a few moments more, but yes. Bill, do you want to start?
Hi, Bill Wimmer, President. Mr. Warner, member of the TriMet Board. My name is Bill Wimmer. I'm President and retired member chapter of Amalgamated Transit Union. There's a lot I could add to the comments and concerns that have already been shared today. And of course, I join the others in asking this board to work with ATU leadership and members like me to address the broken relationship between TriMet management and its workers. And of course, there's plenty that I could say about TriMet's broken promises to people like me who gave their heart to this agency and helped to become one of the most respected transit providers in the country, only to find that the benefits we bargained for and relied on have been significantly reduced. In fact, I almost didn't make it today because I've been sick. But despite all of this, I'm here today because I believe that this agency's anti-union activities must be stopped if TriMet is ever going to return to the kind of effective, admired agency that it once was. Don't believe the hype of TriMet's recent public opinion surveys, which any responsible members of this board should recognize obscured transit rider opinions by burying them under the opinions of people who rarely, if ever, actually use the system. The truth of the matter is service and satisfaction among riders is way down, especially from what it was when I still worked at the agency. And one of the major reasons for this is the TriMet willingness to cast union members of this as members of the enemies of the agency. This damages the morale of drivers, who are then less friendly and less effective operators, which is a well-known safety issue. Worker morale is at an all-time low, and frustration with management is at an all-time high as a result. And TriMet's public relations campaign against the union sends a clear message to the public that they don't have to treat drivers with respect and dignity either, which increases driver confrontations and assaults. Members of this board may not know this, that Amalgamated Transit Union made TriMet possible. Before TriMet was created in the 1970s, ATU organized transit workers across the various transit providers that used to operate in our region, most notably Rose City Transit, where I started in 1969. After serving my country in the Navy it was ATU members like me that helped consolidate transit in our region to provide better service, accountability, and governance. The fact of the matter is that ATU is TriMet. Without our past support, it would be nothing, and with our future support, it will become nothing. It is disgusting to say the least to witness the agency that I helped create aggressively trying to destroy the very people and institutions that created it in the first place. As someone who has worked in the transit region in this area for 47 years, longer than TriMet itself has even existed, I can tell you for sure that the problem lies mostly with some of the members of TriMet current management team. The counterproductive and cruel shift in culture and these staff members have helped make happen as a threat to the agency, its workers, and the general public, and it must be reversed. This board has the power to do that. You have the opportunity to meet with union members like me to better understand the history of the agency you govern and the ways in which current climate of anti-unionism is undermining our shared goals. I hope you will recognize the long-term threat that this climate represents and help the people who care the most about transit in our region to return to the kind of productive, collaborative relationship we used to enjoy with management. I hope that my children and grandchildren will not be forced to grow up in a region where people like their grandfather are the scapegoat for poor management and planning decisions. And I hope my children and grandchildren can someday soon enjoy the kind of quality, friendly, and professional service that used to be valued at TriMet. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Orangeby, why don't you, you've been waiting patiently, why don't you go ahead?
Yes.
If we have time, we have about 7 or 8 minutes left, and
Okay.
so go ahead.
I'll give the balance of my time to Ms. Vopel to my left, camera left. My name is Charles Ormsby. I reside in Clackamas County at 170 Southwest Birds Hill Road, Portland, Oregon 97219-8502. I'm co-chair of what is referred to as the Birds Hill CPO NA on the northeast quadrant of Lake Oswego, and I am a TriMet rider since its inception, circa 1970. I'm here on about 3 points. First off, I'll give most of my time to Ms. Vopel regarding the closure of changes to Route 36. The other issue is on your community meeting, point 13, improve connectivity with other bus lines. I'd really like to urge the board to look at the time transfers between Lake Oswego Transit Center and the destination Meridian Park Hospital. My mother's in the back of the room. I was forced to make a choice of riding TriMet mainline or waiting for the TriMet lift, and not looking forward to a half-hour wait at the Tualatin Park and Ride or the Tiger Transit Center. Not good. Second, point of information. There's going to be a substantial road closure of Terwilliger Boulevard, which will affect TriMet service indirectly on lines 35 and 36 on on Oregon Highway 43, which has a half dozen different names between Portland and Oregon City. We just embarked on line 35 this morning from stop 4998 at Elk Rock, Highway 43 in Elk Rock. My debark stop is opposite that at 4999 Midvale. There's no means of turning TriMet buses around south of Southwest Bancroft Street in Portland should there be any accidents on Highway 43. South of the Selwood Bridge to the Lake Oswego Transit Center. Your northbound, I'd say, safety stop in case of a road closure on Highway 43 is essentially the Lake Oswego Transit Center. You need to coordinate with Portland Bureau of Environmental Services on this project in this building, ODOT, Lake Oswego, a multitude of police departments, and I would like to get the dispatch contact to ensure that these communications are taking place. I understand there's a TriMet bus southbound on Highway 43 that was attempted to be diverted off of Highway 43 onto side streets west of the center line of 43. Not good. You cannot make the turns in that area. The bus widths are, I believe, 106 inches, and the streets are narrow. There's no room. And so I don't know what you're going to do in case there's a traffic incident, as there was on March 3rd, Thursday, at about 8 o'clock in the morning, which closed both lanes of Highway 43 down. I will turn the balance of my time over to Ms. Vopel.
Hi, my name is Lisa Vopel.
We'll start over.
I am a resident of the Rosewood neighborhood, and my neighborhood and the adjoining community will be impacted by the reduction in service of line 36. The reason given for changing this is to make better bus service to one business, which will bring the bus service exactly one parking lot closer to the business. They are close to 3 stops. I know there's low ridership on 36, but part of that is because the schedule has been compressed. If you're going into Portland, the schedule allows enough time, but if you're outbound to the Southwest Employment area of Lake Oswego, the first bus gets to the Tualatin Park and Ride at 8:25, and the last bus leaves at 4:03 p.m. So you can't fit an 8-hour workday in there, even if you skip lunch. So while reducing the loop through the city of River Grove would possibly bring the bus service a parking lot closer, it also excludes a lot of the employment area businesses that are south of there, all along Lakeview, all along McEwen. We have a school that's the only Title X school in the Lake Oswego School District. It's now a Spanish immersion school. The community has worked hard to get us safe routes to school. We believe in other modes. We've got old people, we've got young people. There's a lot of hardship with the existing reduction in service, and I'd like to see the loop stay there, possibly move it, because the city of River Grove, the population has doubled since 2007. And I hear the stories. You know, I live in the community, and I think this would be a hardship. We have a lot of people that move into the area, and they're still driving in their mid-90s. We'd like to give them some other options, or better options. So.
That's a good idea.
That's definitely good. Thank you very much. I would point out that I read the comments from the meetings that were out there, and there was a lot of discussion about the changes in the route on 36. So I'm definitely aware of what the concerns are. Also aware of what we're trying to do with that line. So maybe that's something we can do a little bit more investigation of before we actually. I don't remember what the date was for implementation of that route change.
Right, well,
when we actually do it, is done when?
it'd be September.
September, okay.
But what I would actually, we can discuss this perhaps associated with the ordinance
Yes.
as it comes up.
Okay.
I would love to work with TriMet and have some community conversations on what the community believes they need, because things have changed out there. And TriMet doesn't even seem to realize that we're not Tualatin, because they keep putting Tualatin on all the maps. But, you know, I'd love to provide service to, like, we have a new company that's making footwear. And I don't know about you, but I feel really good about stealing jobs from China.
All right. Thank you very much, you guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much
You
for
bet.
letting me testify.
You bet.
And thank you, Kathy Runyon, for getting the message.
All right.
Thank you very, very much for letting me speak, even if I'm not with the protocol.
All right. Appreciate it. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to close the public forum. I will point out I was troubled with some of the things we heard from the union, and I think it is an opportunity for us to maybe figure out what we can do to meet with them to see if we can improve the relationships. I know there's always two sides to the stories, but I think communication is probably the key, and I look forward to seeing what we can do, Neil, to maybe have some opportunities to dialogue with their leadership.
Perhaps during my report, I can ask Mr. Stedman to come up and give you a little background on
That would be
some of the
great.
issues
That'd be
that
great.
we're running.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from the board on that one? All right. Thank you very much. Well, with that, then, I'm going to call to order the TriMet Board of Directors meetings for March 23rd, 2016. And with that, we'll go right into the board reports. And the first report is on the Committee on Accessible Transportation, or CAT as we call it, and Director Bauman.
Right, thank you.
Thank
The CAT met on March 16th, and here are the highlights of that meeting. There was first a report from Lieutenant Rachel Andrew regarding an update on transit police activity, and she responded to a number of the CAT's questions. On emergency preparedness, Kurt Wilkinson provided an overview on TriMet's role in regional emergency preparedness. Then Dee Brookshire and Nancy Young reviewed the fiscal year 17 budget process, and the CAT approved a list of the committee's budget priorities for fiscal year 17. Dan Bauer, the executive director of Portland Streetcar, reported on proposed closures of 5 stations. The CAT discussed those tentative closures and passed a motion opposing each of the 5 closures on the grounds that they believe it'll reduce the convenience of service, take away service from the community of people with disabilities and vulnerable populations, and will reduce service in a highly populated area. And on that basis, they voted to oppose the closures. And finally, there was a lift operations quarterly report from Susan Florentino. She reviewed lift operations for the second quarter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Then let's move on to the next report, which is on the Transportation Equity Advisory Committee. Dr. Betha, do you have a report for us this morning?
Good morning, Mr. President and board members. Yes, TAC in its most recent meeting spent most of its time planning upcoming community outreach for TriMet's Title VI program. That involved reviewing the overall outreach history, providing feedback and recommendations on the content of those meetings, as well as on specific questions to ask participants, and discussing individuals and organizations to partner with in terms of doing that. There's going to be a candidate forum or discussion per the request of one mayoral candidate. The discussion will to have others come in the next meeting and have them address some issues as well, talk. Committee also discussed developing a more formal work plan to help organize and evaluate the work in the year ahead for the TAC. That concludes the report and updates from our most recent meeting. If there are any questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
I don't see any.
No, Doctor, I don't.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, or MPAC as we lovingly call it. Is that you, Director Prosser?
Yes, I attended the last meeting as the alternate. Board member Martin was unable to attend. I want to thank Shelley for picking a meeting for me to go to that was real easy. There wasn't much discussion, so thank you.
You're welcome.
There really wasn't much of substance. Well, that's probably not fair. It was updates on projects primarily, so nothing much more than that to report. So.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks for filling in.
Well, you got the floor. Would you like to give us an update on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting from this morning?
The Finance and Audit Committee met this morning. Heard a report from the internal auditor, Darlene Gastineau, about their activities over this last year. We talked about some of the findings and the process that they use for identifying audit opportunities. Also talked about the possibility of putting together a periodic report on results of the auditor's reports. So that's something that we'll be looking at in the future. Chief Financial Officer Dee Brookshire gave us an update on the budget. We do have the budget before us today to approve for submission to the Multnomah County Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. We've had no major changes from the proposed budget that the board has seen earlier. And we had a discussion about the strategic finance plan as compared to budget. Again, the board has been briefed on the results of that. We dove a little bit deeper into some of the actual elements within the strategic finance plan and talked about setting that up for a review by the committee later in the year to look to see if there's any tweaking or improving that needs to be done on our policy, and now that we've got a couple of years of actual practice under our belts. And that was primarily it. So.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Then let's move on to the General Manager's report.
Okay, very good, Mr. Board President and members of the board. The first thing on my list was to, again, just offer our condolences and thoughts related to the victims of the terror attack in Brussels. Despite the fact that it was a continent and an ocean away, when these things involve public transit, we have common cause and common worry, and frankly, it feels much closer than it was in distance. I also wanted to acknowledge the great work of our Transport Police Division, two representatives of which are here now, who have really stepped up the presence on the system over the last few days, including with our K-9 teams and other things to reassure our customers, but also to make sure that our system is safe. So that enhanced patrolling will be continuing. I wanted to take the moment at the top of this report just to reiterate the importance of the phrase, see something, say something. Because indeed, it is really the people who ride our system every day who can do the most to make sure that we're safe. And so we will respond to those reports. We have a very diligent, dedicated security staff, including our G4S staff, which is represented here again today. But again, it's very helpful if we have the eyes and ears of our riders helping us with all of that. So I just wanted to make that point at the very top. With that, let me call up Randy Stedman, our Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations, to perhaps give you a little background on the issues that you may have heard, and see if you have any questions of him related to that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, maybe let me start with answering any questions that you might have about what you heard this morning, or if not, I can speak to some of the specific topics that were raised and what we think precipitated the attendance by the members this morning.
Why don't you give us your background first, then we'll probably see if we have some questions.
Well, related to what was specifically addressed this morning, let's take John Hunt's comments, for example. He mentioned badge access. And what we have asked for ATU members when they become officers is to turn in their active employee badge, because they're no longer active employees for the term of their office, and we will give them a badge that gives them the exact same access that they had before and gives them bus transportation benefits, which is what an active employee pass does. The issue with John Hunt came up because he was asking us to provide transportation benefits for his children, which we don't do because those benefits are reserved for active employees or retirees. But we do have him with a badge that gives him personally, so that he can see the work conditions of the members that he represents, full transportation rights, and the same access. So his comment was just not true. He also mentioned the orientation sessions for new employees. We have absolutely no issue with members going to the Union Hall for orientation, or for the ATU coming to TriMet as part of new employee orientation to give an introductory session, which is very much what AFSCME does. Most of their contracts have a 15-minute period where the union introduces themselves and the benefits of memberships to new employees. What we sent a letter to the ATU about was paid time for new employees to go to the Union Hall for a 2 or 3 hour orientation session. And we were concerned because staff at training sessions became aware of the issue that we shouldn't be paying public funds for a private purpose, which is what is essentially happening there. So we, again, it has been a practice, it's true, for TriMet to pay employees to go to the Union Hall for a couple of hours. At some point in the past, we even transported them there. So we, after getting outside counsel opinion from 2 law firms about this issue, we communicated to the ATU that we would certainly have ATU in to our orientation if they requested it. Reiterated that employees can go to the ATU for any time on their private time, but we needed to curtail that particular practice. So I think what precipitated this issue, the attendance today, was a dispute about the packaging program, and to some extent, I think we feel like in the middle of internal union politics. This packaging program was a follow-on from the hours of service agreement. The packaging program created a situation where union employee operators in particular could have a four-day work week, and as a result of that, we dramatically reduced the number of split shifts both on weekdays and weekends. So it was a quality of life issue. This was negotiated by former President Hansen and a committee of 4 from the ATU side and TriMet side. It took over a year to negotiate and was finalized in August of 2014. President Block, even before she took office, filed a ULP against President Hansen with ERB on this issue, which ERB immediately dismissed. That was in March to June of 2015. President Block then took office on July 1st, and in her first week in office sent a letter demanding that the packaging program that had been put in place for a trial period of a year be immediately rescinded at the end of the summer program. But the parties, when they negotiated this agreement, were concerned about giving it a chance to work because it did represent a change from the cafeteria-style sign-up. So they put in a provision that either party could cancel the agreement, but could only cancel it following the trial period for the year. Shelley Block took office months before the end of that period. So our position is that that was not effective notice and specifically contrary to the terms of the MOA. But even if it was notice, the following fall, toward the end of that trial period, there was labor management meetings that resulted in extending that pilot program for the fall and into the winter and actually into the spring. So there were improvements made, as the MOA specifically allowed for, to make it more of interest to a greater number of union members. But there was an extension, a conscious extension of that beyond the pilot period into spring. And there was also an agreement at that November 2nd, 2015 meeting to have a February 1st follow-up meeting so that they could talk about extending the pilot program for the summer of 2016. That meeting was scheduled for February 1st because it takes about 7 or 8 weeks to what we do, run cut and create the blocks for the schedule. It's a very complex, time-consuming process, and they has historically taken 7 to 8 weeks, and we always communicate that, the results of that scheduling to the ATU 2 weeks before the sign-up, which for summer was April 4th. So it was due to be completed in March. On January 29th, one business day, less than actually one business day before the February 1st scheduled meeting, the ATU sent an email to Shelley Lomax and canceled the meeting to talk about extending the pilot program for summer, but gave no other indication of their canceling the program or wanting to cancel the program. Then a few days later, on February 10th, the ATU sent to its members notice that while they had agreed to extend the packaging pilot through spring, it was ending in summer. They did not copy TriMet on that letter, and we did not receive any other oral or written notification of their intent to terminate the contract or terminate the MOA. The ATU then waited an entire month to send exactly the same letter to Neil McFarland. So we believe that that was intentional, because by March 10th or 11th, that would be the time that run cuts were finalized and too late to make any changes to the pilot program for summer 2016. And the sole basis for their wanting to cancel was that the membership didn't vote on the MOA. Well, we have a long history in TriMet of midterm agreements with the ATUs that are signed by the president, or maybe the president and the bargaining team, but not by the entire membership. And in fact, this issue was litigated in the context of meals and breaks in 2005 with a decision in 2008 by ERB that unless there's some prior notice to TriMet that they are going to require a membership of vote of the membership. A vote of the membership is not required to enforce midterm agreements. So we were concerned about that issue as well. So having said that, it is true that either party can cancel this MOA, but our position is we have not been given effective notice of that until perhaps this March 10th letter, and it's too late to cancel it. The ATU interpreted our position as refusing to cancel the pilot program, which is not our position, but there are significant ramifications to canceling that program, which was negotiated by the parties to improve the quality of life. And some of those consequences are that weekday full-time split shifts would increase from 32 under the pilot program to over 110. Saturday full-time split shifts would increase from 0 that we've achieved under this pilot program to 40, and Sunday full-time split shifts would increase from 1 to over 30. The weekday full-time straight duties that end by 4:30 would decrease from 236 to about 170, and full-time operators with weekends off would decrease from 270 to about 200, not including the extra board. So there's significant consequences, and we're hesitant to cancel a program without following the terms of the agreement that we entered into with the former administration, because it is frankly harmful to the members. And we know that there is an election that is pending for officers, a president and vice president, and who knows what will be the president after that election. So we know that the former administration and his team bargained this MOA into an existence, and so we think it's fair to insist upon the terms of that agreement. So those are some of the issues that precipitated the attendance today and some of the items that I heard this morning.
Any quick, yes.
Are you counting the March 10th letter notifying you if they wanted to cancel the summer? Are you interpreting that so that that also cancels fall and all future?
I think that their March 10th letter would serve as notice to cancel it for the next feasible sign-up, which would not be for summer, but beyond that.
Yeah, so, have you responded saying, well, it came too late to cancel summer, but after the summer program?
The former, but not the latter. We did say that this came too late to change things for the summer. We haven't. We did acknowledge that either party can cancel with proper notice. We didn't speak to, okay, we're going to cut runs differently for the next sign-up. Okay. But their notice was effective.
So that might be something to help, close the communication loop and say, no, it can't be effective for summer because the mechanics are too far.
Yeah.
But we will assume that this will cancel all future programs.
Yes, Mr. President. And Randy, I think that you live and breathe this every day,
the board doesn't. I think I feel more comfortable about this if it has some kind of a white paper or green paper, some kind of information so to understand these terms and basically the effects, so we can do our best as a board to do our job.
Happy to do that.
Because I know this is all ad hoc for you, and I understand that. And anyway, that's it.
Dr. Martin.
Randy, is there a seniority argument between the cafeteria plan and the pilot plan?
There are seniority issues. So part of the plan was to not apply this packaging to operators with high seniority, in other words, less than 100. So they they continue with the cafeteria style. So there were accommodations made for super senior operators, and that is where there are differences is that this MOA does treat lower seniority operators better than they had been treated under the prior program, but there were accommodations and sort of carve-outs to address the most senior operators. But I think that is where some of the disgruntlement comes, if there is any, from the ATU membership for those operators who are above 100 but still pretty senior.
Okay, thank you.
Randy, a number of times, not only did I think the president and others speak, and some of the other organizations talked about the aggressive anti-union actions by TriMet. And I struggle to find out, in listening to them, whether they're going to give any specifics to say, this is what we mean. And then there was a disturbing comment, and I hope I did not hear this, but in Shirley Block's comment, that they would resort to destructive protest. And so what I'm getting at is, do you have any idea as to what they're lumping into this anti-aggressiveness that others are beginning to pick up and speak to as if it is a well-known documented fact? I'm kind of puzzled with that.
Well, I haven't heard that before either, so I'm puzzled about it as well. I will say that the ATU is concerned about change to bring their wages, excuse me, into line with the market. And I think you heard some of those comments from the retiree president about changes and the benefits. But the changes in those benefits, the retirees have always been linked to the actives. And so when there is an improvement in the actives, the retiree community gets it. When there is a change in the benefits for the actives that is negative, that also affects the retirees. Depending on the economic circumstances, that linking has, in the past at least, over the long course of time, been beneficial to the retirees. So I think that is part of the concern there, that linking, whatever the actives get is what the retirees get. So we have tried to rationalize and bring our benefits costs and OPEB liability closer to what the market is, and by market I mean our comparators on the West Coast primarily, and so that represents a change for them. Their destructive, the comments they made about destructive actions, I'm not sure what they are discussing there, but there is, we find as another example of the nature of the relationship, we have a very minor job description change to a position that we call a trip planner. And we have a title change. This is precipitated by eFare. So we want to call our trip planners customer experience agents, and there's a very minor job description change about a call center. This is something that if you can't, because it's occurring midterm, we gave notice to the union, we want to make this change. It's minor. We think possibly it's a permissive subject of bargaining, but we nonetheless said that we would negotiate with the ATU about this. We haven't been able to reach agreement. So this is being pushed to binding interest arbitration, the same binding interest arbitration that you have for the contract as a whole. So it's troubling to us that a job title change and an extremely minor change in the job description would be resulting in going to binding interest arbitration, which of course can't be scheduled until June, which then requires time for the arbitrator to decide it, briefs to be written. So we're talking about 6 to 9 months to get a job title and a very minor change in the job description. That is emblematic of where we are.
And Randy, would I be correct if I said that is also hugely costly?
Extraordinarily costly. Both hard costs and soft costs. The amount of time that's and energy that has been invested in talking with the ATU, and then the time talking with lawyers, the $5,000 to $10,000 it takes to have a binding interest arbitration for our legal fees, and then the arbitrator's fees. It's a $10,000 to $15,000 proposition in hard costs to get a job title changed.
So the argument that TriMet's pushing additional costs on ATU is also being pushed back to TriMet.
Correct.
Thank you.
So thank you for what information is going on here. You know, when I listen to this, I'm troubled by just the relationship or the discussion of the relationship being adversarial, which shouldn't be. It doesn't mean we always agree, as Mr. Hunt said, but we should be able to disagree agreeably and understand why we disagree. And I know that I think it was 2.5 years ago. I think Director Esmond and I, didn't we meet with the union leadership? So, yeah. Leadership, and I'd be more than willing to do that, as she suggested. Obviously, we're not there to talk about negotiation issues or letters of agreement, but in terms of a high-level understanding how we can work better together and where are some of the breakdowns, love to have that occur. So maybe I'd rely on you, Neil, and Randy to figure out how we do that and when we do that. My schedule's a little bit busy for the next month or so, but after that, I'd love to sit down with these folks because, again, we are moving into a legislative session shortly. We do have common interests. We should be working together, as I said in that meeting. And so let's figure out how we can do that. But I think we just need to make it clear we're not going to get down to specific issues like this. That's not why we would meet with them.
I think that would be a great step to take, and I would just urge you to take one additional step, and that is to have the same kind of meeting with the managers who have interaction on a daily basis, and then maybe a consolidated meeting of the group as a whole.
That's fair. I look for your advice on how we do that. And
that's a good idea.
Yeah, definitely good. All right. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let me continue, if I can, Mr. President, with a few other more mundane topics, perhaps, but I did want to report on our monthly ridership. We did see an increase in February of about 3.7% in our ridership. Part of that, remember, we had a leap month, so there's a little bit of noise in that. We did see a substantial increase in MAX service, 7.4 increase, and actually during the peak hour, the increase on MAX was 16%, something we're watching very closely. Bus ridership was down a little bit, and again, what we'll see throughout the year is a shift from certain bus lines to the new Orange line. So we'll see a slight reduction in bus ridership as MAX ridership increases. So wanted to note that. Let me also just alert you, and we'll be doing a lot of what I would call over-communication on this, but we have a number of MAX trackway improvements scheduled for May on First Avenue. As many of you know, parts of our system are now 30 years old and are in need of replacement and repair. We pride ourselves on a system that is in a good state of good repair, so we do have some of this reliability work necessary. And the first of these major projects in the upcoming, of really the first of three, is on First Avenue here in downtown. And there's really a series of efforts that will be going on at the same time. One is to replace curved track, which by its nature tends to wear out sooner than straight track. Also switches in downtown near Morrison and Cooch. And so those switches again wear out. And one of the things you might remember some time ago, we did the same thing at Holiday and 11th in the Lloyd District, and we have, frankly, a much more robust standard of how to rebuild those tracks so that they actually are more stable over a longer period of time and improve drainage at the other time. So again, very, very important work. Just to note, this is in the current budget, funded about $2.1 million. Now, the problem, of course, is that while we're replacing the track and the switches, the trains can't operate through that area. So there'll be an alternative service pattern. There will be some inconvenience to our customers, obviously, and that's what we will be over-communicating about. I witnessed here recently just a draft version of a video that shows the way trains will circulate around downtown. Some lines will end short and turn back. Some will operate on the Mall versus Morrison and Yamhill as they do today. But we will need to reduce the frequency on just about all the lines in order to make all of this work and come together. And we'll be supplementing with bus bridges, of course. So again, this is, we apologize in advance to our customers for this. Our goal will be to communicate very thoroughly with our riders that these will come into play here during the May period. And also, I just want to note that this is the first of, again, three. We have another major track replacement scheduled in the August timeframe, and again, next May as well. And those projects are also in the proposed budget that you'll be considering sending to TSCC later today. Yes.
Is that going to be performed at night?
It will be, no, it will be multiple shifts over about a 2-week period, yes.
Around the clock?
Yeah. Okay. And I must admit, for safety and some other reasons, sometimes we leave off a shift, but, you know, it will be a very intensive work period to try to shorten it as much as we can.
And how many people do you figure?
In terms of the work?
You know,
I'd have to get that number for you.
Ballpark.
I don't know offhand.
All right.
But we can get that for you.
Okay. Nothing urgent, just curious.
Good. Just also wanted to note, related, as you may know, we've been tracking very closely the number of jobs associated with the Orange Line, the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project. We are obviously beginning to wrap that up. We have some continuing work like the second stations and a few other things that the FTA approved late on that we could add back to the project. But as of March 10th, we hit our goal of 14,500 jobs, actually 14,523. So that was 7,200 direct hires and 7,300 indirect and induced hires. We contracted again with 567 private sector companies, in addition to our record-setting number of disadvantaged businesses, 134 involved in the project. So again, this project brought jobs to the region when we needed the most, and it's continuing as we complete things like the additional shelter installation through the rest of this year. And then finally, you've had a presentation from a group requesting the renaming of the Sunset Transit Center pedestrian bridge. We reviewed with you a policy associated with naming. I presented to you in your packet and materials a memo that reviewed the facets of that, or the characteristics of that request. And I wanted to just confer with you, as that policy requires, regarding that naming. And I would note that the recommendation that I have is to accept that renaming as a very appropriate change. So I wanted to just assess if there were any other board comments or issues or concerns associated with that.
I don't see any.
then we will proceed, and we will obviously let you know about the actual ceremony or other circumstances surrounding actually the installation of that naming. So, Mr. President, that concludes my remarks.
Any other questions?
One question.
Yep.
Mr. General Manager, someone mentioned to me that they heard something about a new name for the Tillicum Crossing Bridge.
Oh.
And I don't have no indication of what you're talking about, so I need to ask, did I miss something in the news?
Well, I may get this wrong because I'm not a Star Trek fan, but there was an occasion, I think about a day, that the Google Maps actually had a new name across the Tillicum crossing, and it was the Jean-Luc Picard Wonder Crossing or something on that order.
Oh.
Obviously a bit of a joke on somebody's part, but nonetheless, within 24 hours, it was changed back to Tillicum Crossing Bridge of the People. But I appreciate that.
Okay.
It actually was pretty fun. We got a big kick out of it.
I get one question. How has the shutdown of the Broadway Bridge affected our service?
We are able to detour the bus lines onto mostly the steel bridge, but so essentially a little bit of extra time, but not any major effect. The more pronounced effect was on the streetcar loop, and you'll actually have a presentation on the sort of streetcar operation from their executive director Dan Bauer later in the briefing section. You can ask him, but my impression is much more impactful to streetcar than to TriMet bus service.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's move on then to the consent agenda. For everybody watching, the items appearing on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and may be approved by the board and when one blanket motion. However, any board member can request an item be removed for consideration or for asking questions. And if that happens, we'll consider it as part of the normal agenda after this consent agenda. On a consent agenda today, we have 4 items. First is approval of the board meeting minutes of February 24th, 2016. Second is a resolution directing that the reading of all ordinances be done by title only. The third is resolution authorizing a contract with Sardo Bus and Coach Upholstery for purchase of replacement bus seat pads. And then a final resolution authorizing a contract with Pivot Architecture for architectural design services for building group small projects. So is there any item on the consent agenda that any member of the board would like to have removed? Or is there any questions?
Question.
I thought there might be.
You thought there just might be. He's reading my notes. A question in reference to resolution number 1603-15, which is the replacement of bus seats. My question stems from the model years that the seats are going to be replacing from 2003 through 2012. And if I average now of getting our fleet to about 8 years, my question is, why would we be considering putting seats on a 2003? That's going to be way beyond the 8-year life now. And if some of the newer buses that's scheduled to be purchased are going to be coming in and perhaps replacing the oldest ones, is it really a necessity to include them in and have, let me ask the question this way, then why did we include that late of a year model of bus in this?
So if maybe, I think I saw Mr. Seeley here, who is our director of bus maintenance. Good. My short answer is that we do keep some of those buses around for contingency fleets and other purposes. And occasionally they do need new seats because of damage or wear. And so my sense is that and Sam Mara also as well. So perhaps they can be a little bit more specific about that for him.
Good morning, President Warner and fellow board members. I'm Sam Mara, Executive Director of Maintenance. And with me is Bob Seeley, our Director of Bus Maintenance. In answer to your question, the those would be 2012s. At this time, they're already 4 years old. The way we'll work this project is by the time we get to the end of this 5-year project, those will be 9 years old. So it's the intent, it's a belief that at that time they'll be needing replacement.
Okay, but back up. According to what I'm reading, you included year 2003. That's my question. That older of a unit is already now 13 years.
So you're asking about the 2003s, why would we go ahead and do those at this time?
Yeah, why now, if newer buses are coming in and some of them will be replacing those, as I'm assuming that we're replacing older units with the newer units. And I'm just questioning redoing seats in a unit that is now exceeding the 8-year limit of life in which we were trying to get our fleet to. Why are they included in this?
Well, I think to first clarify, our average age is 8 years. That doesn't mean we're going to keep a bus. After 8 years, we will continue to run that bus. There's more than likely that bus is going to run till 15, 16 years old. So that answers hopefully half of that question. But the other part of this is our current situation is our seats are really in need of replacement. These are cloth seats. At this point, we would like to go ahead and replace those with this project, which would be a vinyl seat like our newer buses. So at this time, trying to clean those seats or trying to repair those seats are difficult. It probably wouldn't be cost effective for us. So transitioning over to a new vinyl seat, something that's easier to clean, and with the life expectancy of anywhere from another 5 to 8 years on that vehicle, it just makes business sense for us.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
All right. Any other questions? All right, then, is there nothing else? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So move.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second? Any further discussion? All right, then, all in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to the resolutions. We have two of them. The first resolution is Resolution 16-03-17, which is authorizing a contract with Emmerich Construction for the Ruby Junction Auxiliary Building Renovation Project. Mr. General Manager.
Board President, members of the board, as we expanded Ruby Junction for the Orange Line, we acquired a number of industrial properties that were across 11 Mile Avenue and extended our rail yard and rail maintenance facilities into that area. One of the properties we acquired actually had a metal industrial building on it, which we preserved. But needless to say, that building was not optimized for our use. We've used it for sort of auxiliary storage up to now. What we would like to do is actually remodel that building, an existing asset, so that we can consolidate our fair revenue, technical review, our technical staff in one place, and so as well as provide some additional organized storage. And so we have been, so we've developed a project, architectural drawings, submitted those for a two-step process. The first step was related to qualifications. The second then associated with just the price. In the first step, the contractors do give us an objective related to their diversity and disadvantaged business participation, and then that allows us to make sure that, that they're considering that fully as part of the qualification step. And then in addition to that, then we frankly open the envelopes and see who was low. We did see that in this round we had two proposers that were very qualified. Emmerich was the low price at $545,000, and that was about 17% less than our engineer's independent estimate. And we'd also like to add to that about a 20% change order authority, because again, this is remodeling, and it always has the potential for some surprises. I'd also note that Emmerich has a very good reputation both with us and in the industry, and that the disadvantaged business percentage they committed to as part of their step one proposal was 20%, which we think is really quite good for this level of work. So with that, we'd recommend your approval.
Questions, comments on this one?
No. Okay. In dealing with this contract with Emmerich, I'm just a little bit uncomfortable, particularly when we talk about diversity. While Emmerich is proposing approximately 20%, the out for this contract seems to be, to me, is the way I read it, that since TriMet has limited input into the subcontractor selected to work on the project, it seems to be a loophole for Emmerich to step out and not do anything. I don't see that hook that says to Emmerich, you will have some diversity on this project. And that gives me concern of that, and that they could only give me an approximately, and they don't have really anything in here that says this is what we're going to do. And I think I was trying to quickly go back and find something that we've got something with Emmerich before of a contract, and it doesn't seem to be doing as well from a perspective of diversity, and I need to double check that. But I do have a concern when I see this statement, which means that, yes, you can't mandate it, but I would hope that in the beginning of awarding the contract, there is the diversity piece in there. We've come such a long, long way and have a great record of what we did with the orange line. We no longer have an orange line, so it isn't easy at this point to go back into what was always and not continue to stay on the level that we must be intentional about making sure we have diversity in the workforce and in the contract distributions.
So I can certainly have staff come up and respond in more detail, and maybe Dan or should come up and do that. But one thing that I would just note to you, Dr. Bethel, is that the reason that we did this as a two-step proposal is that so that we could secure a commitment on the part of the contractor to participate in DBE as part of the general evaluation. So I would say it continues to be an absolute high level of importance in all of our business practices. And what we're seeing here is a little bit of a different contracting mechanism. Two-step. First step, tell us what your diversity plan is, and then second step, give us your low bid, and then we will definitely hold them to their commitments that they make. And actually, I don't believe that there's been any attempt on the part of Emmerich to renege, if you will, on that, and that has been built into their business plan and their pricing as they did the two-step process. The distinction is that this is not a CMGC where we specifically approve a contracting plan that the contractor develops at a different point in time, partially because it's a simpler process. And we actually do like to do some of these in a low bid format because we believe you do get very competitive pricing, as I think this procurement did see. Dan, is there anything you'd like to add?
Good morning, Mr. Board President, members of the board. I do understand Board Member Bethel's concerns. These are the factors that we consider when we choose the construction delivery methodology that we want, and this is one of the disadvantages of the low bid. Of course, a low bid methodology guarantees us the lowest upfront price. The public is very familiar with that methodology. So where we feel we have very good site control, which is certainly the case here, it's on our property, we prefer to use that method unless there's a reason not to. So once we get into the selection process, though, the contractors do, as a step one proposal, give us their estimated commitment. And there's a form for doing that, and this contractor filled that out, and that's where the 20% comes from. Now, when we get into the details of how they actually bid, we'll find out if they, in fact, do plan to achieve it. You are correct. We don't have as much ability to influence as we do with, say, a CMGC style of contracting. I don't know if it'll put your mind at ease, but I can tell you we've had a good history with this particular contractor. So Emmerich was the one who just rebuilt our trolley barn. That was also procured in this methodology for the same reasons, and they achieved well over 20%, which was above their commitment for that time. So I think you're correct in your concerns. I think in this particular case, I think I have good reason for optimism.
Okay. Thank you.
And I guess I'd just say I agree with Dr. Bethel, and although we can't have the hard numbers, which I think everybody says we ought to be able to do, but I think we've been more successful by just setting our expectations in terms of how we want people to work with minority and disadvantaged businesses and getting people of color and women on the work side. We've got a remarkable goal there. So I think that the important thing to me here is it's trust but verify. And in this case, I think what we need to do is, just like we've done before, I think this is one we should let the contractor know this is something we're going to be interested in and would like to see periodic reports on how they're actually delivering on this. And that's how we actually hold our contractors and consultants to live up to their commitments. And so it'll pay off if they're successful in the future when we want to do more work with them. And that's what we want to do, is we want to create a culture. And I think we've got the culture here in the organization. I think we've done a good job. So I'm comfortable with moving forward with it at this moment. Director Esmond?
Yeah, I'm fine with moving forward, but just a question, and only contracts I've ever done are bargaining contracts with our employers. Do you look for their past history, cite 5 jobs, 3 jobs where you have worked for the public agencies, and what is your history of MWESBs and true apprenticeship of people of color and women in those programs?
Yes.
That's something we're allowed to do? I don't know.
Yes, we do that. And
Okay.
in fact, that is the basis on which we evaluate them. Because we have a race-neutral program, and because of a recent FTA audit and ruling, we are not able to actually score on a percentage, nor make it a hard requirement. That's just a feature of having a race-neutral program. But we do explore very much the line of questioning you just asked about. What has been their past practice? That tells us a lot about their understanding of the marketplace and their abilities and expertise in bringing DBEs into the workforce.
Just one more.
Sure.
Not really a question, just a statement. A year or two ago, I was involved in legislation with the city of Portland and some other agencies down in our state legislature. One of our firms, minority firm, union electrical contractor, had large complaints. They weren't followed up. Somebody was scamming on the job sites, okay? And the provisions of enforcement were not as strong as they could be. So the law has changed to give local jurisdictions, and then maybe the county, the city, the ability to go in there and investigate, and if there's a problem, there you go. So just, if I knew the statute number, the law number, I would give it to you if I can find it. So there's some scams out there, okay? Thank you.
All right, we may move forward. Is there a motion then to approve a resolution?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussions or questions? All right, then all those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 16-03-17, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? The motion is approved unanimously. All right, let's go on to Resolution 16-03-18, which is approving the proposed fiscal year 2016-17 annual budget for submission to the Multnomah County Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, this is the first step in your budget, or maybe the second, if I sort of talk about the briefing that we had 2 weeks ago to review the budget. This is actually then advances that budget for the review, independent review by the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. They will, at your April business meeting, conduct a public hearing. Bruce, before that meeting, conduct a public hearing on that, and ask a series of questions associated with the budget to make sure that it complies with Oregon budget law, and answer any other questions they may have as an independent body. So this resolution simply advances the budget that we presented to you at the briefing 2 weeks ago, formally to the TSCC. That would be followed once the TSCC certifies the budget by your actual adoption of the budget, which would occur at your May business meeting toward the end of May. If I could just review very briefly, won't review the whole presentation that we went through 2 weeks ago, but just some of the key highlights of the budget. Just note that the day-to-day operating budget for TriMet in this budget is proposed at $511 million. There is some ramp-ups of this number that includes, for example, paying debt service, paying back federal fund that is paid back with federal funds. That adds about $222 million to the budget. And again, that is really just related to the orange line and the payoff of the money we borrowed as we're waiting for the federal revenue to come in. We also have a capital and operating project fund of about $135 million, and some pass-throughs to other agencies like the STFF funds that you've approved in the previous meeting here, and a fund balance and contingency. When you add all of that up, it's about $1 billion, $1,046 million budget. So it's a big number, but again, the day-to-day operating line is about almost half that, $511 million. I would just note that this budget was developed with the front-end identification of themes by the Finance Committee and approved by the board. Those are safety and security, implementing our service enhancement plans, maintaining and preserving the system, improving system reliability, and advancing our regional corridor projects. And I just wanted to note that there is a lot of work associated with safety and security, including a lot of rail safety enhancement programs we're putting into place with cooperation of ODOT and others, a number of bus corridor safety programs, as well as continuing our implementation of safety management system, a CCTV upgrade, and a number of other investments like the MAX service and intrusion detection, roadway worker protection, ergonomic changes to the bus operator cabs, a number of other areas. Related to service, I think this is a particularly strong budget. It does see a 4.3% increase in service hours. About 37% of that is related to reliability or capacity, so overcrowded buses or buses that are late because of added congestion on our roadway system. And about 63% is actually, of that 4.3% is dedicated to expanded service, often new service associated with existing lines, also a new line in the Tualatin area, and carrying all of that forward. And again, we will see improvements that start in September and again in March and toward the end of the fiscal year as well. So we will time these improvements as operator availability and bus availability allow. And we do have a pretty aggressive schedule for putting all of that in place. Related to maintenance, we have the continuation of the Blue Line Station Rehabilitation Program, beginning a multi-year effort to refurbish and replace aging elevators. Bus replacements continue at a very strong pace, 33 replacement and 17 expansion buses. And the track and switch changeouts that I mentioned earlier during my general manager's report. I just also note that we have a number of other reliability improvements associated with the budget, improvements in our control center staffing, additional training for both our bus and rail operators, and additional mechanics and signal maintainer apprentices as well. And it does also allow us the budget room to advance the regional projects that we've briefed you on, Powell Division BRT, as well as the Southwest Corridor, should those be approved and advanced by our regional partners. Also exciting in this budget year will be the implementation of the HOP Fast Pass. And again, we'll be briefing with you later about the success of the integrated testing, that hopefully success that's going on right now and what that means for the actual implementation date of that. Again, the key dates are TFCC hearing April 27th and proposed adoption of the budget on May 25th. And again, the budget is effective July 1, 2016. So with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions or defer the hard ones to Nancy Young or Dee Brookshire, who are the owners of this document.
It's great. I saw Dee stand up and then decide to sit back down. We might want to try to get her back up here. Just for the record, I want to make sure anybody listening, and also for our new board members, I think Dee would tell you that even though we're, again, approving this budget to send to the TSCC, there will be changes to the budget and opportunities for other people to weigh in and make any comments to us before we actually adopt the budget. That's just the normal way things are done here. And I guess want to make sure that people understand there's opportunity to weigh in still if they have suggestions or changes they want us to hear about in the budget.
Right. There will be
okay.
There will be two opportunities. One is the TSCC public hearing, and also they can comment or they can communicate through our general manager any concerns about the budget. This will be posted on our website after approval.
Good. So questions, comments, concerns with moving forward? I think we've been briefed. I think we're ready to move then. Is there a...
I've got one question since Dee has taken the table, and I had made a note to do this earlier, but I'm getting younger. And as I'm getting younger, I don't remember things as much as I need to remember things. But however, I want to make sure that in our last budget year, there was a shortage for the diversity department that then was put back into the budget. I want to ask, from what you can tell me now, as far as that diversity piece goes, which is Mr. Gardner's shop, is it fully intact for this year? And we've got, I've just noticed that there have been in that department several positions of personnel that are gone. And I'm wondering, is that going to be in this coming budget? Because I don't have those details of, is that going to be a solid department? Is it going to be solidly strengthened, and those positions going to be some permanent positions and not fluctuating too much?
As far as I'm aware, we are adding a half a person, the other half a person, which is the one you were describing earlier, in last year's budget year. It's been approved as a continuing expenditure, so that person is now whole and wholly in the general fund. The rest of the positions within the diversity department is, you may have more to share on this, are intact.
Yeah, just in terms of last year versus this year, and this actually relates not just to the diversity department, but others as well, which is that a number of people were devoting their time to the Portland-Milwaukee projects. They were charged differently. So now we've had to sort of over the last 2 years move them into the general fund to, because they're now reporting and doing work associated with the general fund. So all the same positions that John has had in past continue, with perhaps the exception that there was an administrative assistant, which we've added in this budget as a half-time position that will be shared as opposed to a full-time. And that's simply because the volume of work associated with the disadvantaged business program and construction personnel tracking is much less given the construction volume. But that we still have a full-time disadvantaged business person. Of course, have Mr. Gardner as the director. We have the analyst in terms of Jake War that you've reported to the board many times. So I do believe it's up to speed and now fully within the general fund this year.
Okay.
Right. Anything else? Is there then a motion to approve Resolution 1603-18?
So move.
Motion. Have a second? Any further discussion? All right, we'll go to the question then. All those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 16-03-18, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved unanimously. All right, well, let's move on then to the ordinance we have, which is a first reading. So I'm going to call on our general counsel to read the ordinance by title only.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. Ordinance number 343 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, adopting service changes, updating route designations, and amending TriMet Code Chapter 22. This is the first reading and public hearing.
All right. Mr. General Manager, do you have a staff report on this?
We have the ability to, I think I'd like to ask Clay Thompson and